What's going on, everybody? Today I got a special video here. We're going to be talking about 10 tips and tricks for being a better Madden player. And these aren't all going to be specific to Madden 19. Some of them will be more specific to how this game works. But the hope is that a lot of these tricks are going to be something you can use from game to game. These aren't money plays. These aren't break the game. These are more football intelligent things that aren't going to really resonate with everyone. But I'm hoping that at least everyone will take a thing or two away from here and will overall improve your game. If you're a really inexperienced Madden player, I think this video will be extremely useful. If you're more experienced, it might not be as helpful. And these aren't going to be in any specific order, just 10 little ideas here. So let's get into it here. So the first tip here is going to be really controlling your speed. And this is a really important tip, especially for more inexperienced players. It's really tempting to just put on the burners right away and just try and outrun everyone right away. That is not going to work, especially when you're playing better players, especially when you're playing online. So in the past, what you used to be able to do is kind of swerve around and create bad angles. And the best way to create big runs and good run after the catch is obviously to create bad pursuit angles and avoid tackling. But as you can kind of see, what I did right there is when the defenders are close, and I'm on a lower difficulty right now, but you can kind of get the point right there. When they're closing in, and this is going to apply to all sorts of situations, you can really throw the user off, whether it's an actual person doing it or the computer off, by screwing up their angle. They think they have a beat on you, and then you turn on the burners. And this is what you see from people in real life, right? Like Le'Veon Bell is so good at this. So in the past, where you used to be able to kind of do this and just with the left stick and swerve around dudes, you can't do that anymore. You got to do it more naturally, more realistic. Credit EA for implementing this into the game a little more so. One more example here. You know, it didn't work out for me right there, but that's kind of the idea. And it also applies for running between the tackles. If you're trying to sprint right into the back of the line every play, it's not going to work. Be more patient. Read your blocks. Don't just bash into the back of your lines hoping you're going to break a big play. So that's the first tip. So the number 2 tip here is going to be defensive usering. And a lot of people don't want to hear this because it can be difficult, especially if you're inexperienced. But the only way you're going to have that really good defense in Madden, and this applies from year to year, is you got to know how to user that middle linebacker. It gives you a huge advantage. You can basically take away the entire middle of the field if you do it right. But it is something you've got to practice. A lot of people want to just use that D lineman. It's easy, you've got one assignment, but trust me, you have got to learn how to use her if you want to take that next step up with your Madden game. And I have a couple tips here that will hopefully kind of allow you to practice better. Things that I look for when I use her here. The biggest tip I can tell you is kind of stay in your assignment when the play starts, and the more comfortable you get, you'll have a feel for where you need to be to start. But the biggest thing I can tell you is don't focus on where you are, who's in your immediate proximity. You know, do your assignment to start. You don't want to blow your assignment completely, but keep an eye on how the play is developing, how the routes are developing. And if you can kind of cover up the guy that enters your zone, kind of the first guy that enters your zone, but then keep an eye on kind of the area around you and what receivers might be entering that area. And then you can kind of read it like I did right there. He was trying to throw that slant because I kind of baited it open. So what happens when you stay in your zone that little extra second, but you're looking at the play that's happening, you can kind of anticipate where the ball is going to go, because they're probably not going to throw right at you, but because it's the middle of the field, it's a popular area to throw. So that's kind of the biggest piece of advice I can give you while you're practicing your usering is pick up that first guy that enters your zone, sort of blindly follow him, but keep an eye on kind of the second guy that's entering your zone, because that's usually going to be both where the computer's looking and where other users are going to look as well. And then another piece of advice for usering, and this is going to apply a little more to man coverage. You can do it in zone as well if you know exactly where they're going, but if you're playing man coverage, and it works much better against actual users as opposed to the computer, but you can really bait guys, especially if you're playing someone that likes to run the same plays, which we all know happens all the time. If you know where he's going, you know, play dumb for a second. You know, this corner route's a pretty common one. So So you can almost act like you've been beat. And this, again, is just something that you need to kind of practice and rehearse, but if you know where it's going, you can make up a lot of ground with that user. It's really hard to replicate here. And really, the deeper the route, the better this is going to work because the reaction time is so good. But those are hopefully 2 helpful tips for improving your usering, creating a lot of interceptions. Now we're going to move on to the 3rd tip here, and this one's more Madden 19 specific. But this is going to really apply to when you're getting press coverage. And you see here on that play on the bottom there, Saints crossed. You see that sort of go route that has the outward break to begin with? Well, in Madden, and this is going to be the most sort of game exploity concept we have here, but you can see this outward break. And obviously we've got Jerry Rice here on a lower level corner. It's probably going to work anyway. But I really recommend finding plays, especially if you're getting press coverage a lot, which is pretty common. Press coverage, of course, when the corners are up on your receivers like that. This route right here is going to burn off the line. For whatever reason, the corner just does not touch this guy. So let's run this thing. We'll watch Jerry Rice, what he does, and boom, he's gone. And this is a cover 1. If you're getting any cover 1, this is just going to destroy it. But really, anytime that they're not going to have safety help over the top, this route, it's in a lot of play calls. It's not a hot route, so you got to find some plays in your favorite playbooks that have this. But you can see it's just played terribly. The difficulty's down, but trust me, guys, this works pretty much every time. So if you're dealing with press coverage, having a tough time getting deep, look for those route concepts. All right, my 4th tip here is going to be a way to counter. This is really going to only apply to playing online, but a lot of people love to run these quarter packages, dollar packages, even, you know, dime, nickel sometimes with like 3-3-5 packages. And they just sometimes don't understand that this alignment right here is not ideal for defending the run. And if someone is running these packages and you're having a hard time throwing the football, well, it's because they're coming out in these pass defending packages. But if he's going to do this, I mean, my goodness, he's giving you so many running lanes, and you might get stuffed occasionally. You might get a block shed up front, and that's what they want. They want you to feel discouraged by not being able to run against this front, because sometimes it just happens. Madden will Madden, and you won't get great blocking. But even on like 3rd and 6, if you run into this twice and you can't get it, a lot of times if you just keep at it, you know, don't let them dictate what you should do. This is not a run defending package. You are going to get good blocking against this more often than not. A lot of times you'll get the animations where they just pancake the entire front line. So pay attention to the packages that your opponent's running. You know, if they're coming out, it works the other way too. If they're daring you to pass deep by running 4-4 coverages, come out with 4 wide receivers and go deep and just be patient, and your wide receivers will get open downfield. So that might not be the best tip for everyone, but I know a lot of people have a hard time playing against those defenses, and just trust me, the most basic inside runs, come out with 2 tight ends and force them to get out of that package. Football's all about adapting to what your opponent's doing. This is an example of that. And then my next tip is going to be kind of taking advantage of something it's been a problem in Madden, and it's kind of a hard thing to replicate based on how defenders will play this kind of stuff in real life, so I don't see it being any different in future Maddens either. And this also really plays into what I said about if an opponent is coming out in like a 4-3 package like we're looking at right here. If you're running a 4 verticals and they're running a lot of zone defenses, which is really what most people run in Madden, especially if you're just playing online head-to-head, if you're patient enough and the pass rush isn't destroying you, these receivers will come back and there is nobody open. A lot of people are aware of this, but I wanted to point this out. You know, in real life, at some point, these linebackers are probably going to turn and move downfield, but they just don't. And it's important to be patient because a lot of people are just going to rush 3 defenders and hope that you get rid of the ball. You got to trust your blocking. And then the second they kind of stop and then take that first step forward, you're going to want to throw that football. This is a huge way to beat a lot of defenses that you're going to see online. It does take a little timing and practice to understand when those receivers are coming back, but once you've got it, you're really going to force the other guy to change their plan, maybe run more man coverage, or do whatever they think is best for beating that sort of offense. So our next little tip here is going to be using the Playmaker Mechanic, and most of the good Madden players know how to do this, so you can skip ahead here, but a lot of people see me playing on Twitch wondering how I do that. It is so useful in many different situations. What the Playmaker Mechanic does is it's going to grab the closest receiver and send them in whatever direction you choose to send them. So for example there, I roll out, I want the receiver to come with me, and how you do this mechanic is you hold the left trigger with the quarterback, and then you're going to flip that right stick in whatever direction you want. So really the two most useful scenarios for this are going to be when you're rolling out and you want them to come with you, or if they're, say, in a zone like we just talked about, and you recognize, okay, they're really covering up the close to the line of scrimmage here, but if I send these guys deep, it's going to break that zone. And you saw it right there. Randy Moss, one-handed catch. But if you want to get your guys vertical and you haven't called like a 4 verts or something, it's a good way to get guys moving downfield. But in most situations, this is going to be once your first few reads are not there, and you really need to play ground football it. But practice this mechanic. It's kind of awkward to do that left trigger and flipping the right stick when you're in the heat of the play like that. But once you get used to it, it gives you a big advantage. My next tip here, pretty basic, but this is all about high pointing throws. How you do that is you hold LB before you throw the ball. And this is going to be especially useful, again, against zone coverages, which you're going to see a lot of playing Madden. Throwing bullets over the heads of especially linebackers is a very dangerous thing to do in this game. But this high point mechanic, what it's going to do is stop a lot of those crazy animations you'll get. So like here, we'll show, for example, I'm going to throw a bullet, and the difficulty is low right now, but that ball's going to get picked off. It's coming right at the linebacker's head. The linebackers can jump very high in this game. But if you have a guy behind the zone coverage like this, like you can see in this video from my Raiders series, if you high point that ball, you're going to be able to get it over the linebacker much more effectively. This is also very useful in the red zone if you got a big target, but you want to clear those linebackers, get it up in the air, and make a play. It's useful in those situations as well. The downside of doing this is if you have a bad quarterback, a lot of times they will overthrow it. If there's safeties over the top, you're risking interceptions. So if you're playing with a really bad quarterback, do be a little more careful with this mechanic. But I think that should prove helpful to people having a hard time dealing with linebacker interceptions and stuff. My next tip is going to be more of a game flow piece of advice, and this is kind of a big Bill Belichick mantra, and it's kind of bend, don't break defense. The big piece of advice here is take points when you can get them and focus on playing red zone defense. So many people like to go for it on fourth, choose not to kick the field goals. Look, if you're in the red zone, it is tough to score down there. The defenses tighten up, especially in Madden. It's really hard to score in those tight windows. Take the field goal, and then on the other end, don't get beat up when you give up a big play. Just know that you can hold guys to field goals. Don't get aggressive and run 0 blitzes, blitzing 7 guys when you're in the red zone. What I recommend is run zone coverages, use that middle linebacker, force them to take field goals themselves, and when it's the fourth quarter and maybe you're down by 3 instead of 4 because of this, and all you need is a field goal, it can make all the difference in the world. So be patient, don't be too aggressive unless you're extremely confident you can get it. Play bend don't break defense and kick field goals. Then my last bit of advice here, and this is something that is never going to go away, this is just football 101 right here. You have got to step up in the pocket. So many people want to do this and run backwards like this, and yes, it might work sometimes, but if someone's got a contain on, or they're using a linebacker, it's not always going to work the way you want. What you want to do, if it's there, is step up. And the difficulty is low right now. So many people want to roll outside, but I'm telling you guys, this is the best way to either get scrambling yardage. Obviously, it helps to have Michael Vick, but this is also going to make it easier to find the open man when you step up like this. And this is what players do in real life. You know, the the quarterbacks that have really good pocket awareness are gonna sense that pressure off the edge and step up. So don't do this and roll out. Again, the difficulty's low, but a lot of times that's gonna result in a sack. You've got contain. Now, sometimes those D linemen are gonna cave in, and that's your way out. But more often than not, your best path to escape is to do this right here and step up like that. So that's everything. Again, some of this is very basic. Some of this might be more game-specific tips that you might know about. I hope something applies to you here. Some of the more experienced guys are going to think this was a dumb video. That's fine. This was more targeted to the people who are having a hard time playing online and they just want to have fun and stay competitive. I hope a lot of these tips here are going to help you out. If you have your own pieces of advice, feel free to drop those in the comments below to help everyone else out. Hit that like button if this helped, if you enjoyed the video. And cheers as always, guys. We'll see you next time.